Welcome to the Public Technology Institute's Professional Development Series, a free monthly webinar series designed to connect local government IT professionals with the people, conversations, and ideas that matter most. PTI is the only national organization dedicated exclusively to supporting local government technology through consulting, education, and a peer-connected community. We help you lead smarter, grow faster, and stay ahead of what's next. In this month's episode, Better Together, Human Resources and IT, we will dive into how effective collaboration between HR and IT can strengthen your team from finding the right recruits to succession planning for continuity and help IT deliver outstanding service to the organization.
Hello there, and welcome to today's webcast, Better Together, Human Resources and Information Technology, how two enterprise departments can achieve great things together. I'm Barry Condrey, Director of Technology Consulting for the Public Technology Institute. I'm excited to serve as the host for today's webcast. Thanks for joining us. We're going to have a great session today. This webinar is brought to you by the Public Technology Institute, aka PTI. A bit of background on the Public Technology Institute. We were formed back in the 1970s to support and encourage the use of nonprofit technology in nonprofit organizations, the government, so forth. And today we're a division of Fusion Learning Partners, which is also a nonprofit with a very similar mission. They were formed back in the 1970s also. PTI has three areas that we focus on. First of all, we focus on education, strengthening the education and the skills of technology leadership in local government. We have a membership function. The membership function keeps us in collaboration. This is where the webinars and the thought leadership and the government technology conferences are organized. And finally, we have technology consulting, which is what I manage for the Public Technology Institute. This is where we help governments build the foundation that they can lean on and they can expand on, things like strategic planning, cybersecurity assessments, policy work, and similar efforts. You can find more information about us and our annual conference coming up in November at www.pti.org. Registration for that conference will open in June. So also you can check the website for information on our awards programs. Those will also open in early June, including our new award, the Alan R. Shark Technology Leadership Award for Distinguished Service. Okay, just a couple of housekeeping notes for you. The PTI webinar series releases a new webinar on the fourth Tuesday of every month. Webinars can be found in the PTI Community Hub, our collaboration space, at community.pti.org. And there'll be a link in the description to describe that you'll be able to make use of. 1 week from today, PTI members will be invited to a Tech Talk virtual meeting where we'll continue the conversation and do a bit of a deeper dive into it. Go to the Community Hub, visit the PTI event calendar to add Tech Talk to your calendar and access the Tech Talk meeting links. Our PTI Community Hub is a resource we're building out for you. You'll find my GovIT to Go blog there, as well as these webinars and other resources. Okay, so on with the webinar. Joining me today to discuss this topic is Lori Sassoon, Chief Talent Officer with the City of Corona, City of
Corona,
like the California. Thank you, Lori. Lori, take a few moments and introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me, Barry. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, Corona like the beer or like the virus, unfortunately. Yeah, happy to be here with you guys. Like Barry mentioned, I'm leading HR efforts for the city of Corona, a city of about 165,000 in Southern California. And this is the 7th city that I've gotten to serve in my career in local government. I was just sharing with someone last week that I took my first job in local government in January of 1990. So that ages me a little, but I've loved it ever since. I've loved the diversity of the things we get to do. I love the purpose behind what we do. And I've spent most of my time in leadership positions, kind of moving up through the organization. Worked in the city manager's office for many years, but always had one foot in HR. I was an interim HR director early in my career, very involved with HR issues and overseeing HR departments. And then most recently here, actually serving as the director here, but I've been a city manager, an assistant city manager, And I was an IT interim technology person for a season too at one point in my life. So, but I love public service. I love what we do. So happy to be here with you.
Great. Thank you, Lori. You sound like the complete package. You've actually spent time in IT too, as well as the city manager's office and
Right?
organizations along the way. That's a great breadth of experience. All right, so let's get started. When I was chatting with Lori in preparation for this webinar, it occurred to us just how similar IT and HR are, right? Both departments are gatekeepers to a large degree, and sometimes, we have to both deliver difficult messages. Both departments support the larger business and have many different customers. Both departments deal with a lot of regulation and compliance. Okay, a lot of regulatory environment in the HR department as well as IT. Both departments are primarily in the people business. And yes, for all of you IT, CIOs, and people out there, IT is a people business.
Right.
And HR is definitely a people business.
Absolutely.
So we're both in the people business. There's got to be a lot that we can learn from. As a CIO, I used to make a ton of requests of my HR department. I was really fortunate to have talented and motivated HR professionals like Lori, help me through those times. Sometimes CIOs don't understand why HR makes the decisions that they make. And the CIOs might lack the communication skills or the personality skills to really effectively question that with the HR department. Lori's going to help us today understand how these HR decisions are made, how CIOs can approach HR, and the value of a partnership with them. So without further ado, Lori, let's start with your organization. Help us understand the scope of your area of the city government of Corona there. And what's the city of Corona like?
Sure. So we have about 1,000 employees across the business. So full service city with police, fire, water, wastewater utilities, and all the other customary functions of a local government in California. Our HR function is 15 full-time people here in HR, of those to kind of shepherd and care for those 1,000 folks. So I think you put it well. Like I feel like finance, HR, IT, we sit in this tension of customer service and gatekeeper, right? We don't want to be the departments of no, but we are the departments of let me guide you, let me help you get what you want to go, where you want to go in a way that is in keeping with our city policies, makes sense, is in keeping with our values, and is, legal, ethical too. So that's a little bit about us.
Yeah, IT doesn't want to be the department of no either, but frequently we're perceived like that.
Right. And there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of not that way, or yes, but we have to look at it this way. In the IT world, if you're not a little bit of no, you'll end up with too many animals in your zoo of applications and systems, right? As a friend says.
I like this. So we like metaphors at PTI. So animals in the zoo as app rationalization. I'm going to have to, I feel a blog post coming on about that.
That's a PTI, that's a Darrellism. So.
So you were talking about alignment too in your comments just now. So we sometimes in IT, we say not no, but not now. Right. But we also talk about alignment being so incredibly important, like how we align our resources so that the overall organization can meet its goals. Those goals may be different than the goals in IT. So I think that's another key thing that we both do together.
For sure.
When you go to an HR department, the departments in local governments that will have a strategic plan tend to be people like community development, IT, and HR. I've found when I go in and ask for strategic plans in departments, HR's almost always got something.
That's so true.
To give me as I'm surveying local governments.
I think we're also like custodians of the organizational values in some ways, right? In HR. Like I'll give you an example. We had a department recently in the process of bringing on a new employee who during that process was absolutely not displaying our values, was strangely combative and angry and just nasty to our HR team. And so in conversation, my staff was telling me the story. And what I told them is, well, let's reach out to the department because we're not going to hire this person. And she was like, wait, is that our decision? I was like, well, we have information the department doesn't have about this person who should be at this point on their best behavior. And it's our job to point out this person clearly is not going to fit the bill for what we expect from our team members. And we rescinded that offer. So I think, being champions and custodians of our values is a big part of what we do in HR in partnership with our departments.
Right. Yeah. I mean, HR is typically responsible for the ethics policy,
Right.
right? And the HR policies are some of the more foundational policies in the organization.
Right.
So, much like IT policies are very foundational. So,
Absolutely.
but, when HR directors and IT CIOs and IT directors are both under a lot of pressure. And, when I think of pressure on the people side in IT, my mind immediately goes to recruiting, right? So this is an area where CIOs feel a lot of pressure. If we have opens to hire, we need to fill them. If they go too long without being filled, people might get the feeling that we don't need them or that they can't be filled. If you fill them too quick, you may make a bad decision, perhaps. So, and a lot of resource time goes into this. So, help the CIOs understand a little bit how IT can partner with HR for recruiting effectiveness, and what should we keep in mind?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that there's a few things you can do to help kind of keep on top of that. One is to have a regular rhythm of where you're evaluating the organization that you have, your structure, your job descriptions, and you're thinking ahead about your next step, right? Because inevitably people do leave. So waiting for that to happen and then the dumpster fire that happens when that happens, the fire drill is not helpful. But I think, one way to do that is kind of use the budget as your trigger. Like every year during budget time, spend some time with your leadership team, get some feedback from your staff and think about, okay, if some of the chess pieces move, what would be my next optimal move? Are there job descriptions that need updating? Have the jobs morphed? What is my new structure that I'm going to try to sell during the budget? So the budget can be a trigger, but continuously evaluating the structure, continuously evaluating the roles prepares you so that when that key vacancy opens up, you already have been thinking about that job description. You've been thinking about the next steps for that role, how you'd like it to be different. Is the salary competitive? Is it not? Where can you rob Peter to pay Paul a little bit more within your budget guidelines? Just being proactive and not waiting for the emergency to come because it will come. So I think that's a key way. I think another way is to just have those open conversations with HR when they're pursuing your recruitments. Like, look, we're here to serve you. And it's a little garbage in, garbage out, kind of like with data. So if you spend a little time on the front end, really thinking about, what kinds of questions you want to ask in an interview that's coming up, setting even setting an interview schedule proactively at the beginning of a recruitment is super helpful because that helps us communicate with candidates and just move the timeline along. So here in Corona, we have a 75-day time to hire metric that we measure and we track, and we're trying to keep on top of that. So we're incentivized to help departments. But again, departments, a little bit of planning on the front end, just setting those timelines for the dates is super helpful to getting expediting those recruitments. Thinking about the kind of person and things you want in that person helps us do screening for you better. So just having that communication. Most cities, whether they're small or large, if they're small, obviously one person's doing all the recruitment, you know who to talk to. In a bigger organization like our organization, we have department liaisons, and those are the people that have a relationship with the department. You're being proactive about that relationship and picking up the phone so that that person isn't in the dark about what you want in the candidate can also go a long way helping you get to the end result that you're looking for, I think.
So that's 75 days. Is that from the time the posting goes up?
Right.
To the time they walk in the door?
From the time the posting starts to the time the employee walks in the door, 75 days.
You know what that sounds like?
A little unfair to us because we don't really control the day they walk in the door, but that's where
right. No, I get that. Well, you have to have a target, have to have a metric. What I'm reminded of is IT is all about, if you call the help desk, you'll get a call back.
Right.
Service level agreements, right? So what you're describing is a kind of service, is a commitment to a type of service level agreement.
That's right. That's right.
And I can think of some recruitment efforts I've been part of that have gone on for over a year.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. And I have to say, even in my own shop here, I've just filled a vacancy that we went out for 5 times. So in some positions, the market is hard. But we don't want that time to be. It's one thing for the market to be the issue. It's nothing to be that HR is the issue, that we've just left your recruitment on the shelf and not gotten to it. So that's what we're trying to avoid with our, essentially a service level agreement. You're right.
So I also hear you saying if you wait until you have a recruiting need to start thinking through changes you want to make, things you need to update, it's sort of you're just adding to time to the process. There
Yep.
are things you can do up front so that you're not being reactionary. You know, if you're in a small organization, you should really have a succession plan for every single person in
Right?
IT. Or like this person leaves, here's what we're going to do.
Yep.
It gets
Absolutely.
it gets harder. It gets harder when you're in a larger organization, like I have 100, 200 people. It gets a little tougher. But planning that succession and staying on top of your job descriptions and duties is so important. But it's also one of those things that I think CIOs sometimes, in the hustle and bustle and setting everything as a priority, right? It's
Yep.
tough to get back to that, but it's easier if you have a partner and HR is, working with you on it.
I agree, but I would also add to like if part of our role as executives to sort of grow those next levels, next generations of executives or managers, this is part of what they have to learn. So I think for a CIO to sort of farm piece of this out to folks who aspire to move up, this is giving them a taste of what moving up is. It's not that you get to just be the tech guru, but you also have to do the department heady sort of things like work on the budget and think about job descriptions. And
Yeah, love
so
that.
delegating those pieces, I think, is a great opportunity for people to learn.
Delegate is a way of promoting growth, and then
Yep.
you're also excellent, excellent. Okay, so once we get these, let's say we get a recruited, talented staff member in 75 days that reflect organizational values, they're in the organization. This leads us to another area of enormous pressure, and that is retaining them.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
the skill sets in IT, much like the skill sets in HR, are very portable. If you're a network engineer for a city, you could
Mhm.
be you could transfer that to being a network engineer for a military contractor or a school system or a bank or a local MSP. So we're constantly having to focus on retention. When I was a CIO, I had an annual metric I had to report, outside of retirement,
Oh, really?
how good a job did I do, keeping my staff. And that was something that, I mean, I used to dread when people would resign. So, how can HR help the CIOs sort of win that retention game?
I love this question. So I think this is just pivotal. And I think there are things we can focus on that we can control. So we don't control salary to a large extent, although we can control it to some degree. We can advocate for compensation packages that make sense and keep us competitive. So, but the things we control most directly are our culture and the way we work. And those things we absolutely should continue to invest in. And again, if I had a dollar, Barry, for every manager or supervisor who told me that, well, my people know my door's open, and if they need me, they come and check in with me. Like that is not management. That's not in connection with your people. So I think doing some of the basics really well, like making sure that that people have one-on-one time with their supervisor in a structured way, at least monthly, ideally more frequently than that. Again, that not just, oh, we talk about me and Barry and I, we meet all the time because we talk about projects. That is not the same as Barry and I have a one-on-one in our calendar where I talk about, hey, Barry, how are you feeling about the work here? What else can I do to support you? What could be different that would make things better for you? Like, what are you excited about that you're working on? What are things you don't love about your work? In other words, away from the tasks, and we're just engaging with the person as a human. Like, there's so much good data to show that when people feel connected in that kind of professional way with their supervisor, they're much less likely to leave. Similarly, there's so much great data to show that when people have a friend, and Gallup would say a best friend, so that sounds a little, woo-woo to people, but people have a best friend at work, someone they feel close to, they are wildly less likely to go. So the things we do to facilitate community in the team. So we have our IT team here, I'll brag about that, like our director, Chris, and their team, like they do super fun things together. They do a skill building lunch once a month where someone leads it and people brown bag it in, they spend time. They do game nights after work. They use their teams to like communicate in different ways. Like those things helping people feel connected to their colleagues, they're much less likely to leave. And then the last thing I think is most likely is having those opportunities for stretch assignments, challenges. I am super fond of saying for our good people, work is the reward. Like give them something chewy, chunky to dive into. That's a form of a reward. So, but we have to be engaged. We have to know like, hey, do you have some time? Do you want to take on something new? Does this have interest to you? What are the things that are of interest to you? For example, I have someone on my team who's interested in a communications career. She's not super interested in HR long-term, but she's interested in communications. So I've committed to her. I made her lead on our communications with employees and working on special projects that involve communications, social media, marketing. And so if I can keep her longer by engaging her in the things she loves, that's great. Now, is she going to stay forever? No, that's okay. I want her to know I support her and I'm going to give her meaty things she can do here in HR in the meantime. So I think, again, being proactive, challenging our supervisors and managers up their supervisory skills so that they're really connecting with our teams is a huge recruitment strategy, besides the money thing, which we got to solve for, right?
Well, the money thing will always be a thing. That'll always be harder in
Right?
local government, and we get that. But
Absolutely.
I like what you said about the stretch assignments. I think the other thing that you communicate, the meta message there for the employee is, I trust you. I'm interested in your development. I think you'll do good work here. There's an awful lot of really positive meta messages when you give somebody a stretch assignment and you give them
Agreed.
like a safe space to exercise that.
I agree. I think the other thing that really gives great messages is when you make it safe as you can for people to talk about them leaving. I think because, a lot of times in the local government world, people are looking for they're going to another public agency. If you can make it safe for them to have those conversations with you,
Right.
and as people see that they end well, that makes them more open and also gives you an opportunity to talk them into staying. Gives you an opportunity to think about, can you push for a promotion for them if they stay? And then also save them heartache because you may know the great agencies around you, and there's often agencies that are not so great cultures. They pay more because it's hazard pay for those people. So if people feel safe having those conversations with you, it's to their benefit and to ours to have those conversations earlier, I think.
Yeah, that's great information that you can use.
Right?
If you know what their fears are
Right?
and so forth. I remember we used to have a grading scale after we would interview people for retention, for succession planning on a
Mm,
scale of 1 to 5, how likely are they to leave in the next 2 years?
that's
And
so interesting.
when you start having those conversations with people and you start telling them what you think your career trajectory looks like, and it exercise a little vulnerability, and then
Yep.
people tend to trust more and they tend to open up more. Hey, let me ask you something else, just real quick. I'm curious, HR skills, knowledge, and ability, and so forth. How portable are the HR skills outside of the industry of government?
Very portable, extremely portable.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because, hiring, employee relations, AKA personnel issues, coaching, mentoring, supervision, the regulatory environment is fairly similar, although we have the public sector labor law kind of thing going on. But generally speaking, all those skills are very benefits, very portable. Yeah.
Okay.
People go in between frequently.
All right. So if they can, and you're really expressing a need to think strategically about what your HR position inside your IT department.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's, we're all about strategy in IT, or we like to think we are. And so, the ability to really influence your own culture internally, I think is something CIOs don't really give a lot of thought to. It just is what it is, and it tends to follow the personality of the CIO. And that's one thing we do in our CGCIO program, Certified Government CIO Education Program. More information on PTI.org. They focus on soft skills. They focus on leadership development. They focus on how to build an effective culture within the IT organization. So
That's great.
always felt like you can do that. You can stand a chance of really driving down your retention numbers.
I agree. And I love it to get those calls from IT or any department asking to partner on something where they need a skill build or they see a gap, or they want to work. Like HR, we are just dying for the departments to ask us. Just ask. We're dying.
Yeah. Yeah. So in IT, sometimes we avoid
Right?
that work, right? But the irony is that our sister department, HR, lives for that kind of work.
We love it.
That's what you
We love
want,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sadly, there is this sort of HR as bad guy bias in the organization sometimes. So and there is a kernel of truth in that, right? So we're the ones that show up with the box and thank you for your service, right?
Yeah,
But
well,
we are
been there.
also, we much prefer to be a hand of help, right? And to do positive things and invest in our people. So,
Okay. All right, excellent. So, a lot of the PTI membership and by and large, the vast majority of cities and counties across America have very small IT shops, right? I mean, so
yep.
the number of localities that have over 1 million people, you can count on two hands, right?
Right.
Everything else is like really can be really, really small. We have a customer that's got 2,000 residents in their county and everything in between.
Yep.
So if there's only one HR professional, like the HR director, what advice do you have for those CIOs and IT leadership where they might not have a lot of, I mean, you've got, what did you say, 15
I do.
people?
Yep.
What if there's only one? What if there's only one or two if you're lucky?
Yep. In my last public agency, we had one person and a part-time HR person. So it's a small agency, 100 employees. Yeah. One IT manager. That's about it. So I think that being proactive is even more important. Small agencies, they are doing God's work, man. They don't have the bench depth. They have to know everything and do everything, right? So it really is, they do amazing work, and my heart, I'm so supportive of those people. So, but even more so, being strategic is so helpful. So whether that looks like carving an hour out on your calendar every month or every 2 weeks to spend a little time thinking proactively about what's next for you in your little IT shop, that's time well spent, partnering up with that HR person and working on proactive automation projects to help make both your lives easier. Time well spent, right? There's a lot of manual processing that can go on in HR that creates demand on the IT side. So if you can partner together on those kinds of projects, then your HR professional may also have more time to help you with the more substantive, difficult employee relations issues, other issues that come up. So I think being BFFs with HR is even more important.
So you're really outlining the HR department in two roles: HR department as partner and HR department as customer,
right,
of IT, right? So like CIOs have got to get both right. It seems like.
I think that's fair. And I think they're also related, right? In some ways, especially in a small organization.
Right.
I mean, if your HR person can become more tech savvy and can understand your systems, whatever, like say your ERP system that they're a partner in, they're using, they're driving work for you, but they're also there to help you. So it's very connected.
HR is also can be the source of a lot of project requests for IT. And so, equitable treatment and fair treatment and devotion of resources and so forth can also send a message to HR that, we get it. HR is important. HR cares. And that just makes the partnership angle that much easier.
I agree. And I would say every department is important, but HR and finance are the backbone of all the departments, right?
It's like Animal Farm. Some pigs are just more important than others, right?
It kind of is and I put my city management hat on, and I would say IT, finance, and HR are not well functioning, then the whole enchilada starts to fall apart, right? So while everyone's important in IT, I'm also fond, I have an issue with we don't provide service. It's not Baskin Robbins. You don't take a number and get in line. Some things are more mission critical. We have to pay people. If we're not paying people, can't maintain the accounting system, then all the wheels fall off the bus. So IT needs to be a little savvy about that too, and take care of those HR and finance people first. I'm sorry, it's just true.
Yeah, I think all the enterprise departments sort of fall into that. You got a separate budget department, and then there's the public safety departments who think they're a totally different animal altogether in terms of importance. So, I think IT learns to navigate all that, but I think what we need to recognize is that HR also, we've probably common approaches for best practices, between the two departments for that. So, our last webinar that we do these webinars every month. Our last webinar was on budgeting success, or the one before last was on budgeting success. And the largest part of most IT organizations' budgets is salaries.
Absolutely.
And so, how should CIOs involve HR in their annual budget processing?
So yes, I mean, absolutely, we should be involved. And again, my ask would be earlier is always better to help you navigate what you want to do. I love using the budget process as an opportunity for change and updates. Maybe you're looking at your compensation schedule and you're going to be asking for some salary adjustments for your IT folks, those couple people you do have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And involving HR to help evaluate those requests and see the bigger picture, right? So you as the IT folks are the subject matter expert with regard to the pay and compensation of your team. But that has ripple effects across the organization, right? You're paying your supervisor X, but then we have other supervisors in other departments with similar levels of responsibility, they're paying Y, right? How much of a gap are we okay with? Makes sense in the organization because of the IT role and its unique nature versus another kind of supervisor. And how much is not, right? What sorts of, if you have bargaining groups, what's the bargaining group you want to put this position in? And does that make sense against looking across the organization? So that's where we can help you and doing that earlier than later, because ultimately at some point down the line, senior leadership is going to ask HR to weigh in, and we don't want to be the ones to like rain on your parade that this cake you've been baking for 3 months is suddenly falling apart because we didn't check in. So involving us early, letting us partner with you is really wise.
The compensation strategy is something that I've always felt like if you ask an HR manager, what's the compensation strategy for the organization, they probably know, right? And that's something that I think all CIOs need to understand. They need to be on the same page with HR over what exactly is the comp strategy. Are we going to be 80% to market? What's our strategy for retention counter offers? How much latitude do we have? I've worked in HR department. I've worked in IT before, IT departments where HR manages all of the salaries for IT.
Yeah, I think that's very,
IT's got to go to HR and get things justified like that.
Yeah, I think that's very typical. I think that's typical. And I would say, Barry, I think you're giving us more credit than we are due. I don't know that all HR departments have a like baked compensation strategy. I mean, often the governing body has some just general goals for compensation, or the city manager or leader, organizational leader will have some general goals. But I think it can move, like it moves based on the market. And so I think this is a continual conversation. I think the issue, you mentioned this issue of what do we do when people are leaving? I think that's another philosophical issue that can kind of come from the top. Some agencies are very comfortable, like counter offering and trying to keep people. Other agencies feel like that's a race to the bottom and they're not willing to do that because then people just go out and get jobs and don't do. I can advocate either way. I feel like the decision can often be situational, but I think a lot of times compensation is more about the way we've always done things, which is not good. And, I think a lot of places, that's kind of how it evolves. So we can be better, I think, about having a baked compensation strategy that we live by, at least a yardstick we measure by.
I think so too. I think we should have the yardstick, but part of compensation is not just salary. Right. It's also how much you charge for insurance, which has always been a lot of pressure in my environment on, because if you're only giving someone a 2% raise, but you're raising the cost of their family health care by $300 a month, they could actually end up making less money than before, so right? So we were always very sensitive to that, but that and the ability to provide for retirement, can they put money away with 457B or whatever, and then there's all these other things that go into compensation that's not just salaries.
Right.
And so that when I say comp strategy, that's sort of what I'm talking about high level things that CIOs can then take and at least maybe have in the back of their mind while they're doing some planning.
I think that's great. Yeah, looking at the total package, including benefits.
Right.
And then, the big one nowadays is the issue of remote work. And, so many, especially younger folk, love that opportunity. And whether or not you're offering that, whether or not what your rules are around that, can really be a make or break piece of people's, I'll call it part of the compensation picture. Because
Really?
yes, because time is valuable to people. And what remote work does is give people more time, especially if you're in Southern California and the commuting time is insane. I know there's lots of parts of the country that's true. Getting back an hour, 2 hours that you're not spending on the road is part of comp. And
so do you feel like remote work, and I would call it like the suite of work schedule flexibility, right? Like, because you've got like people can work 4 10s. Like I have a customer, no one's in the office in local government, no one's in the office on Friday, they work 4 10s. And then others have flex schedules where maybe they take every other Friday off or something like that. Is that something are those things that HR drives, or are those driven by the customer departments?
I think it can be a little of both. It's often driven by the employees, but like from my perspective, I think we partner and we drive that too because we see the bigger picture of what
Right.
are the organizations our competitors are doing, how we can be better than our competitors in that area. So I think it's a little of both.
Yeah, I think my perspective is that those decisions tend to be made by city managers and county managers, right?
I think
And
that's true.
HR and IT, if they could partner and go to, higher management, I think that could be an effective strategy because I've
I
never
agree.
I've never been able to have any success with that outside of human resources, outside of partnering with
Okay,
them.
that's interesting. Yeah, I agree. And I think we can help with policy, we can help with data, we can help with technology that helps facilitate it. We can help with advocating for things like pilot programs, right? That can help prove a base case. We can help by dealing with problems. So that's one thing that we can do in HR is deal with problems. Like I
Right.
feel about this suite of, remote work options and scheduling options, a little like I do about dress codes, right? I don't like dress codes. I would much rather, and I will volunteer, I will go have the conversation with the 1 in 100 people who can't dress appropriately, have that hard conversation, then write a dress code that ruins it for the other 99, right? I'd much rather do that. I feel the same way about flex schedules, remote work options. I would much rather deal with the problem person who takes advantage, isn't being productive, isn't being accountable, and deal with that person. So that's something we can do as HR. So if you haven't guessed it,
Okay.
I'm a fan of all these tools as tools in the toolbox for us
Yeah.
being an employer of choice. I think
I,
we are wise to consider them and to advocate for them.
I remember writing dress code policies for a department once upon a time, and that was the most fun policy to write because all the men had absolutely no fashion sense. And are we going to put culottes in the dress code,
Oh
or are we
my
going to
God.
put capris? And we're like, what the hell are you talking about? Anyway, what
That's
seems to be
hilarious.
what seems to be work these days is dress for your day,
Right.
like a dress for your day pie, and be
That's right.
situationally aware to dress for your day, right?
That's right.
So I'm glad we mentioned remote work because that is such an important, all the recruiting that I've done in the last 10 years, one of the questions that always comes up is what is your virtual work, remote work policy?
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
I tell candidates not to ask that in the first, and don't ask that question in the first
Correct.
interview, but people do anyway. There's other ways to find it out, but it is so important that flexibility for the work-life balance and the new social contract that we try to put out there. It's so incredibly important.
I
So
agree. And I think on the flip side, we need to impart to our employees that because we do allow this, that their accountability and their expectations should be that much higher.
right,
Don't ruin it for everyone else. Be extra accountable, be extra productive, have that camera on, be engaged, be responsive so that people can see these tools are not detrimental to service.
Right. Because we'll always have that one senior manager somewhere that will say, how do I know they're working if I can't see them?
Right. And how do we know they're working when their arse is in the chair?
And that's exactly what IT CIOs say.
Right.
How do you know they're
And
working anyway, right?
there's truth in it. They're on their phone playing Candy Crush or on Discord. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. And we've already talked about that. I think the final thing we wanted to talk a little bit about before we wrap up is the importance of having HR and IT in sync and at the table with each other to support their initiatives with city county leaders. Now, that's what we were just sort of talking a little bit about, but it's always seemed really important to me. Like when I would go to county management and say, I need something, HR was one of the first groups that I would brief on it and try to get their support. Hopefully that's been your observation as
Oh,
well.
totally. Totally. I think that's great. And again, we're here to be a partner. We also need to spar a little. A healthy disagreement is good too, right? With what you want to do and hearing from us, getting our input, I think is really important.
Right.
Some of the things we spar about too, it's just kind of on the employee relations side. Like sometimes where you have a challenging employee and you want to go one route, HR wants to go another, just hearing each other out and dialoguing about that. So
Right.
we can kind of get to a plan together in the right place. That it's because one thing we're doing like IT is looking for consistency across our departments. So that's where IT is kind of the customer department comes in. Like,
Good.
where does your proposed route fit in with where we would normally typically take somebody? So
Okay.
yeah, I think just being BFFs is so important to both our
So,
students.
so we're getting close to our time for today, but Laura, I wanted to give you an opportunity for the last word, the secret sauce. What's the advice that you want? They don't remember anything else about this webinar. What do you want people to take away for the next couple of
I
minutes?
think my advice to you from your HR friends is to invest in your supervisors and managers if you have them. If you have someone who is a supervisor or a manager, even informally, that is the gap I think I see most frequently in IT departments and frankly in most departments is this lack of skill. The best IT person got promoted and they're the supervisor, right? And they don't, that is often a different skill set than being the best IT professional, the most subject matter experty tech whiz. And then we make them a supervisor and they're a fish out of water. So just being aware of that and being intentional about how you invest in those new skills and making clear to that person that the skills that got you here are now not going to be the skills that make you the most successful person here. And while that is hard to do, it's a hard pivot for all of us to make frequently, but it's so essential. It has ripple effects for you and your organization. Again, whether you're small or big, like helping that person be better at coaching, leading other people, delegating, most importantly, communicating with their person or persons in their team and really walking that journey with them intentionally and not just talking about the tasks of IT, but those things about how they interact with the other humans and giving them opportunities to build those skills. Though that is the secret sauce to department success. It really is. All the things I can do. And saving problems. So it causes great growth and better things for you as an organization. It also saves you a lot of headaches and heartache down the line.
It's also very doable, because organizations like PTI, have decades and decades of experience of creating leaders at all levels of the organization, whether they're the CIO or whether they're on the help desk. Everybody in IT is a leader to some degree.
That's right.
But when you put them in a position of supervisory and they're a great technologist and you don't give them any additional skills, as you said, that's all too often what we see. And it doesn't need to be like that because the training is very attainable. All right, Laura, that's a great thing for people to take and for them to remember. Thank you so much for that. So this has been great information. This area is so important, but I'm afraid we have to wrap it up here and be a good steward of everybody's time. For the audience, if you've enjoyed this webinar and you want to hear more, we have a Tech Talk scheduled for PTI members June 2nd, 1 week from today at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We're going to continue the conversation there. So, Lori, thank you so much for being with us today. And I would also like to thank the Public Technology Institute for making it possible to have this important webcast discussion today. So check out pti.org website for more information, particularly about our big conference coming up in November and our awards programs, educational opportunities, and assistance we can provide with consulting services. Thanks again, Lori. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. To explore all of PTI's learning opportunities and resources, visit us at pti.org. And be sure to check out our Public Tech Job Board, a resource exclusively dedicated to connecting quality IT candidates with public sector organizations by scanning the QR code. Tune into next month's webinar, When the Lights Go Out, Creating Cyber Resilience Strategies That Get You Back Online Fast, which will be released on Tuesday, June 22nd.